Imagine you are savoring an incredibly delicious dessert. The taste is irresistible, making it impossible to eat just one piece, and you indulge in every bite. What you don't realize is that this dessert, which seems so irresistible, is poisoning your body. Silently. Just like this dessert, social media offers momentary pleasures, but is silently poisoning our minds, our attention, and our connection to reality. This video is a wake-up call. It's time to recognize that, while we relish in the digital world, we are increasingly poisoning ourselves with all this hyperstimulation from social media. A direct question for you. In the last month, have you spent more time not speaking with your parents or not checking your social media? Check off how many of these situations happen to you. You wake up, and the first thing you do is turn on your phone screen. You always take your phone to the bathroom. You watch more than one thing at the same time. You spend 100% of the time eating breakfast, lunch, or dinner while watching something. When you find yourself bored, you immediately turn to smoking, scrolling through Instagram or TikTok feeds, or watching pornography. You often find yourself unlocking your phone and can't remember why. If you check 2 or more options, pay close attention to this video, as you might have a problem. I'm going to share something personal here. A few years ago, I would have aced this test. I would have checked off all the options. It was something I realized during the pandemic. All this time at home turned me into a cell phone addict. I spent so much time staring at screens, and my dopamine bases and stimulation were so high that some more tedious tasks almost caused me pain to do. I found myself spending hours a day on my phone, hopping from one app to another, with a backlog of tasks, and not giving myself the attention I needed. The crazy thing is, even with thousands of stimuli in my day, I always had that feeling that nothing fills the void. You know? What changed for me was understanding all this impact I was suffering and how bad I was making myself feel. But to understand the full impact of social media, we first need to zoom in and understand our own brain. The human brain, the incredible machine that has brought us this far, has hardly changed in thousands of years. It is a legacy of our hunter-gatherer ancestors, adapted to detect survival opportunities. It's the brain that evolved to scan vast valleys in search of fresh prey and get totally excited at the sight of an antelope, for example. That was pretty much our day. We would run to gather our friends to go after the antelope and feed. There wasn't much else to do back then. It was just like that. The reason we were motivated to chase after the antelope is the same reason we are motivated to log into Instagram or TikTok, check our notifications, and scroll the feed. The reason we are motivated to do any of these things is because of a chemical called dopamine. Well, if you like the theme of personal development, you've probably seen many YouTube videos about dopamine. But dopamine is a bit misunderstood because most people think dopamine is the wellness chemical, that it's a brain chemical released when you're experiencing pleasure, which isn't exactly true. Dopamine isn't related to pleasure, it's related to motivation. Dopamine is what's released when you feel you're about to be rewarded, or when you feel you're about to experience something pleasurable. When our ancestors saw the antelope frolicking across the field, they received a dopamine rush, which motivated them to go hunting. It's dopamine that drives us when we perceive an imminent reward. Whether spotting an antelope or receiving a notification on the phone, dopamine is in control. It's no wonder that whenever we receive a phone notification, we want to open it immediately. Coming back to the present world, this is where things get complicated. Despite the fact that we share the exact same brains as our hunter-gatherer ancestors, we no longer live in that world. Today, we live in a world of superstimuli, where technology offers us instant pleasures at every click. This has hijacked our natural instincts and made us hostages in our quest for dopamine. That's why we get stuck on social media, because our brain is telling us to stay there. Because there's a chance we might get a reward. We might, for example, receive social validation, or we might see something stimulating and daring that will make us feel good. It's the dopamine system that tells us and motivates us to stay there. By now, you should have understood the problem and why I put feel good in quotes. But if you still haven't understood, basically for many of us who find it difficult to focus and find it very hard to motivate ourselves to do harder tasks, it's because we've reprogrammed our brain to fall into these super stimuli instead of more natural stimuli. Have you noticed that the more time you spend on social media, the harder it is to concentrate on more complex tasks? This happens because our brain adapts to intense, rapidly changing stimuli, making everyday life boring in comparison to the digital world. A significant study conducted by Stanford University and published in a psychology journal provided valuable insights into how social media can affect our mental health. They selected thousands of people from different ages and backgrounds to understand how frequent use of social media affects our minds and our emotions. Over a period of 6 months, the participants were monitored for the time they spent on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. To measure emotional levels, participants underwent standardized psychometric assessments at the beginning and end of the study. Besides quantitative assessments, researchers conducted in-depth qualitative interviews with participants. This allowed a deeper understanding of personal experiences related to the use of social media. The research revealed surprising and, in some cases, concerning results. The researchers concluded that the time we spend on social media is directly related to our mental health. The research showed that when we spend more than 2 hours a day on social media, we are twice as likely to suffer from anxiety, and the risk of depression also increases significantly as our online hours accumulate. Another conclusion was the increase in feelings of loneliness. Remember when I talked about the feeling of emptiness at the beginning of the video? The study revealed that frequent use of social media is linked to feelings of loneliness and isolation. Although we are surrounded by virtual friends, we often feel disconnected from those physically around us. The evidence collected through scientific research suggests a significant relationship between excessive use of social media and mental health issues. Anxiety, depression, loneliness, insomnia, and self-image related issues are just some of the negative consequences observed. If you find yourself in one of these problems, it could be that your routine with social media is directly linked to the issue. A month ago, I went to the beach and forgot my phone charger. To my dismay, no one who went with me had the same charger as mine. So, I decided to set aside my phone and spent the entire weekend without looking at any screen. Man, it was like entering a completely different world. The waves break gently, the sun shines in the sky, and I felt there, connected with the present. At that moment, small things like talking with a friend, watching people walking along the beach, or simply listening to the sound of the waves became immensely pleasurable. The following week from the trip, my approach to digital life changed. I blocked some apps that added nothing to me, turned off social media notifications, and instead of spending time checking my feed every hour, I started dedicating more time to activities that really mattered, like reading a good book, exercising, and spending quality time with my family. This change in my routine made me feel more productive, more centered, and above all, happier. Instead of being a slave to notifications, I became truly the owner of my own time and attention. So, here's the challenge for you. Reserve a weekend, go to the beach, a park, a square, anywhere that makes you feel connected with real life, and leave your cell phone at home. Give yourself the opportunity to experience the authenticity of life, away from the distractions of social media and incessant notifications. By doing this recurrently, you will be taking a brave step towards a more meaningful and authentic life. You will discover that dopamine flows naturally when you connect with the real world. You are voluntarily choosing to stop poisoning yourself with social media. If you like philosophy, psychology, and topics related to personal development, subscribe to the channel and like the video. Tell me what you thought of the video by commenting right down below. Thanks for staying till here, and follow the White Rabbit.